Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Going to take a look at both the week of June 28th through July 3rd, and then also let's look at the monthly for July in a little bit of a bigger sense than the weekly. The weekly, I'll always have a more detail on the weekly. But let's start with the weekly first because half is June and half is July this week. So this week is going to get us into some intense energy of the Uranus Saturn square again, with both Mars and the Sun going to be triggering that. So you remember remember how I said every week the moon gets into a hard aspect with the Saturn-Uranus square. Whenever the moon gets into a fixed sign, which is, each week it gets into a fixed sign, that's when the moon will hit that Uranus-Saturn square. So it's the same thing with the Sun and Mercury and Venus and Mars. When they go through fixed signs this year, then we're going to get a lot of triggering of that Saturn-Uranus square, especially when they get to the degrees where that square is occurring. So this week we're going to have both Mars in Leo and the Sun also in Cancer, the Sun, but also hitting some of this in a hard way, and both challenging and triggering that square both in our lives personally and also in the collective. So just briefly, the week actually starts kind of mellow. The first 2-3 days of the week, there's not a lot of activity. And on Monday, which is today, Venus quincunxes Jupiter, and that accentuates the mellowness of the week to start. It's definitely a very passive, lazy kind of energy. Doesn't really want to get up and get going. It's wanting things to come to it instead and be appeased that way. So there's not a lot of motivation with that, and maybe it's just kind of almost like a little bit of a resting period in between some of the intense energy of last week and the intense energy coming up to the end of this week. But also, it will give us a tendency at times to maybe not be as socially confident as we would like to be, and maybe withdraw, be shy, or even more so just kind of accept people that are not as challenging to us or on the up and up as us. So that we almost accept people that are an lower energy flow than us, no matter what kind of energy level that may be, on what plane. It doesn't, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological, all those different things. It could be one, it could be, different things with different people, but basically just kind of accepting something that's less than what would be, an equal relationship on those levels, or less challenging to who we are, and just kind of accepting that. But then I said, the main thing this week is Mars in Leo locking into the Saturn-Uranus square, and it's going to form a fixed T-square because Saturn is retrograde in Aquarius and Uranus is in Taurus. So Mars and Leo will be right in between the two of them, creating what we call a T-square. And the T-square is an aspect pattern of great tension that's building, and it needs to it forces us to act because there's a lot of challenge and crisis going on. But when it's this fixed T-square, it's very, we're really having to push against things that are very entrenched, energy wise, habit wise, structure wise, just the way we do things, just kind of entrenched. So, and that's what and so when you look at it first, like the Mars opposite Saturn will be exact on Thursday. And, what's interesting about this too, at the same time that the Mars is exactly opposite Saturn Thursday and the exact square is Saturday to Uranus, right in between on Friday, there's an exact trine to Chiron, which is actually in those same degree areas of the late teens that Saturn and Uranus, mid to late teens, that Saturn and Uranus are in. So like whenever anything is hitting them, it's hitting Chiron too right now in Aries and other ways. And in this case, Mars will be trining Chiron at the same time. So the Mars-Saturn is like, energy-wise, this is just like really like, two goats locking horns or two rams locking horns. It's like this real struggle to like do something with someone or others, like in a partnership way where things really have to be hammered out and have to be like, so it's almost like, tough kind of like negotiations on how we're going to get ahead together, and it can really feel like a struggle of this like pushing and pulling on how to actually do that, because there's obviously a lot of hard work in what we're having to do. But like the Mars Saturn part will show that there is a culmination of a lot of energy right now, like important timing of a lot of things going on where a lot of important decision making has to be made, but yet there feels like there's a lot of things blocking us. And like, with the Saturn thing, it can always look like it's like authoritarian situations, people with authority somehow over us who are inhibiting or restricting us from what we want to do, which is Mars. Or also it can be situations that are inhibiting us too, that the circumstances of reality, Saturn, and the structures that reality is inhabiting right now is just blocking us from what we really want to do. And it's really interesting too, because Mars and Leo, I talked about Mars going into Leo in one of the last blogs, and that really has a drive to express itself, the uniqueness of each one of us individually, the desire to have like control or leadership in our own life, and to really show our unique gifts in action, and here's this Saturn in Aquarius that's kind of blocking it, but it's the higher octave of Saturn. It is retrograde right now too, but it's like saying, well, that's all fine and stuff, but how does it fit in with the greater good of the change that needs to occur within these structures? So that's really part of this equation right now, is like, how does each one of us have some unique talent that Mars and Leo that we really need to show the world in order to have fulfillment? How does it fit in to this Saturn in Aquarius, into this like, how to bring structure into a new age when all these other structures around it are collapsing, the Uranus and collapsing quickly too. So, the reality is this is going to take a lot of patience. It's a lot of hard work. It's like fixed energy. It's like it has to be taken step by step. There's not going to be an easy solution to this. And life is really going to like poke at you and see where your weaknesses are and test you. to see if you'll just give in easily and not want to do, what it requires in the real world, this kind of work, that, and so like, we can really, get into a defensive posture, with Mars Saturn too, and feel like a lot of inner anger and rage at who or what we're perceiving is that blockage, is that Saturn in our life. But it is really, really excellent energy for just rolling up the sleeves and getting in to like the hard work of like, climbing a mountain step by step, where every handhold, every foothold has to be measured and stable before you can take the next one. So that's really what's going on. But here's the thing. Mars is squaring Uranus too. And so there's this like incredible drive to act out of our own subjective viewpoint, our own individualism, our own creativity of the essence of the being who we are on an individualistic level. And that energy, it's like, it's like a, that boil, it's been boiling and it's like, the top wants to blow off, it's that's what Uranus is. So there's this intense impulsiveness within us to really want to, act out strongly against anything or anyone that we are perceiving, once again, as being what or who is holding us back. So it's almost like impossible not to like get, subjective, egotistical about what you want to do and act in ways that, can be upsetting to others. But this really blends in with the Mars and Leo, because there's this really deep need right now for each individual to express themselves and find some value in all these changes that are going on, some self-value in all these changes that are going on. So, it's like, so the question really is kind of like, how do you throw out the bathwater but keep the baby, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's really like, how do you meet the duties and obligations that you still have, to society and the real world, and at the same time honor that individualism that's within you, so that you have like the self-respect and also the respect of others. And that, like, like I said, anything that holds you back, you're gonna lash out at. So you've got to find a way to like find a more balanced way so that you don't, push others away. But here on a bigger level too, on a more societal and planetary level, when you think about the tension of the Mars, Uranus, Saturn, it really is a setup this week and the next couple weeks too, especially after that full moon hitting the eclipse point too, of like, possible natural disasters, shocking events in the world, that have like a lot of like sudden quick changes, and once again, structures falling apart quickly, maybe having to do with some of them actions our leaders take, because that's the Mars in Leo. So it's really interesting on that level too, that we're definitely at a very, what we would call a sensitive point for those kinds of events too, for large social unrest events, for natural disasters, for upsetting type things. Like even this, a good example would be this, what just happened in Florida with this building collapsing. The structure of the building, Saturn, was, not in good shape, was falling apart. No one really took action on it. And, boom, we have this like sudden upsetting event. So that's a really good example of how this energy could manifest. And so now let's just talk about that Mars trining the Chiron, though, because this is showing that there is the ability for some progression here. Now remember, Saturn is also sextiling Chiron right now, right? Remember that? And that Pluto is trining Chiron. So it's like we got all this stuff going on with Chiron that's saying, hey, if we make the right moves, there's some progressive change that can really come in a harmonious way and change things quickly in a very beneficial and satisfying way, in the sense of feeling some fulfillment and therefore getting some healing and learning from the situation. So that's really interesting, that there's, in the middle of all this, we do have this chance of making some good progressive change too, that'll really be satisfying and help us on our healing journey of these times where many of us obviously are caught up in the struggles of a lot of the issues going on in the world, and that's that Saturn Uranus stuff. Now, also, I said the sun is also going to trigger the same Saturn Uranus square, and also Chiron too, in a different way though. The sun's not in a fixed sign right now, it's in a cardinal sign. Chiron is actually in a cardinal sign, so there is going to be a square to Chiron, more a square, more challenging energy, but there's also a bumpy quincunx to the Saturn, but a sweet sextile to the Uranus. So coming out of that, the Mars hits first and then the sun does. And as I've said before, transits are always an ongoing story. They're like a relay race. They're continuing the story of the transits before them. So we can really get an idea many times of how they will continue to manifest in our lives personally, since we know ourselves and what's going on, and in the world, if we can see how those things play out in the world. So here we have the Sun quincunx Saturn first, and I think the exactness on that one is on Saturday. Yes, on Saturday the Sun is quincunxing Saturn. And it's really interesting on that one because, we may go through this struggle with the Mars and it's not going to be easy. Even though we're going to be willing to do this work, this hard work, it's still not going to be an easy thing. So the Sun Saturn quincunx can really make us feel like on an egotistical personal level that things are just conspiring against us, that whatever, the universe, life, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is just putting up a lot of things in front of us that are really blocking us. So it can really drain some of our confidence that, can I really do this? Can I really, handle this situation? And it can really, and when we feel threatened like that under a Sun Saturn quincunx, we have a tendency to be like, well, I know what worked before, and maybe it's not the best situation, but at least I survived. So it's a little bit of a circling of the wagon, so to speak, on a personal level, where you may look and back at your habits that you're trying to leave behind and change and find that, well, there's a temptation to fall back into them because maybe I'm not getting what I really want, but at least I'm getting the minimum of what I need. And so that can be actually depressing. It can really pull the air out of your own balloon by doing that. And once again, authorities and others, situations seem to find our weakest points on the, that Sun Saturn energy and really can poke at those points. So, so it can be a day or a little next weekend or a time of some self-doubt. And when you throw in the square to Chiron, well, that's, really a lot of it right there is the sense of just a lot of having to take a lot of shots, and having to take a lot of wounds, punches, whatever you want to call it, in this battle to get where you want to go next, and wherever that fits in a world that's also in a battle to in many different crises right now. So it's like really getting a glimpse of new parts of your personality and parts that you want to nurture and grow, and yet like feeling really awkward in trying to get that and find the right balance. And how do I bring that in and accentuate that and start to let go of some of these other things I need to let go of? So an interesting mix. But the thing is, the sun is also sextiling Uranus, so like that is saying there are opportunities out there to be able to freely express the individual who you are, the gifts that you have for others, and that you can connect with others too, that you have a part and others have a part, and together come up with some very innovative ideas and insights to give you opportunities to like nurture this drive on the ambitions that we have, that we're trying to get fulfillment from. So it's a long, twisted, hard path this week of like really having to like, look at the things on our plate that are, reaching this kind of like crisis point, and really having to do the hard work that's involved in that in a very like purposeful, step-by-step manner, and to go through a lot of the inner doubt and confusion and changes that have to be processed while you're going through that journey. And so that's very interesting. And in a sense, I'm going to take that and lead that right into the monthly for July, because, July in a way is full of a lot of energy like this. Like, and it's not, it's like it's going to be like a hot and heavy month for all of us to like, really get into the act of where we want to go. So there's going to be, week after week of like this kind of energy, of this challenging energy, like this week of like, trying to create new forms and structures in a world where many of the old things that we have that are formed and structured are falling apart or unstable. So, but so we'll go through stuff like that each week. But like there are a few what I call like bigger background events in July, and it's not really super intense, but it is because we know we have the Saturn Uranus going on. But like as far as like bringing in new bigger events, there's not really a lot to talk about. The main things is that both Chiron and that body we know as Eris, the Kuiper belt body that we've been using and really seems to be fitting in to this age where there's lots of chaos and coming through the individual, in particular with Eris and Aries. Both of them are going retrograde, so they're going to join Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto, and join the retrograde party of the outer planets. And just a time when taking a step back, taking a look at how do we cause chaos in our own lives, with Eris, and especially in Aries. There's a lot of self-responsibility there. And then with Chiron also in Aries, and I've been saying this ever since Chiron went into Aries a couple years ago, self-responsibility for our own healing. Everybody is individually responsible for themselves and that journey. And so once again, we're going to have 4 or 5 months of a lot of self-reflection on the steps we've taken so far and where we want to go next. And both of those occur mid-month. And then at the end of the month, there's what I actually consider the biggest thing of the month, at least on a bigger scale. Jupiter, if you'll remember, just stationed retrograde a week or so ago in Pisces, but only at 2 degrees. And remember, like I said, it's going to go back into Aquarius for most of the rest of the year. So that's what's happening on July 28th. Jupiter will return to Aquarius, and once again will, really, the Jupiter in Aquarius is really, going to be until December 24th. So it's the main sign Jupiter is really in this year. The Pisces thing was just a little dip. And then there is some strength, but it's really looking into new ways to live socially. This is a social planet. So there's just in a very general sense, society looking for new ways to live, changing the everyday social values of what's going on, and looking to improve things, like looking to make systems better, looking to make methods better, looking to have more knowledge, looking to change laws, and looking to deal with even health and medicine and things like that in the other way. And then on an individual level, really wanting to connect with groups who you are congruent with whatever this change is, where you are feeling that you're getting some sense of justice and moving society forward in a certain way. And and remember, Jupiter in Aquarius, for this is definitely also when people ignore authorities. They really and just people kind of become the change. Authorities kind of take a second step back and just go out and want to do it themselves. So really kind of interesting there. And what's interesting about that is literally on the day that Jupiter is going into Aquarius, Mars will be in the very last degree of Leo too. So both at the critical 29th degree, Jupiter in Aquarius going backwards, Mars and Leo going forwards are going to oppose one another. So there's going to be an incredible amount of energy of wanting to get ahead, and the individual really pushing them. So that that could really be a time of if there's going to be more social unrest, things like that, where you could really see a trigger then. And then literally the next day, Mars is going into Virgo on the 29th, and on the 30th, Jupiter is also squaring Ceres. So it's really so you got this Ceres is going to be in this T-square with them. So this is all about wanting security and resources again. But once Mars goes into Virgo, it really gets into the energy of having slow, methodical actions that are really detailed. It's the actions of the craftsman at work, but can also be highly critical of the actions of others and not be as tolerant. So all of that happening at the end of the month. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, remember, and I don't mention this a lot because it's such a big, long background one, but I have mentioned it a couple times, at least over the last 2 years. Neptune and Pluto are, still in that sextile together in the mid 20 degree ranges. Neptune in Pisces and Pluto in Capricorn. So they're still in that together. And that is, a lot of what's driving societal change, to put people's values into society more. And then this month they both are hitting Ceres in a positive way. Neptune is going to sextile Ceres, and Pluto's going to trine Ceres. So maybe there is going to be movement forward socially on dealing with making sure that everyone gets what their needs are met, their nurturing needs met, having, something to come back to, some kind of hearth or home or security, and that that their endeavors are productive. So there's the energy to work with on that too. So so July is really going to be, like I said, it is an intense month, despite not having a real lot of big stuff going on in the background. Each week it's going to be similar to this week, where there's going to be a lot of challenges going on. Anyway, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. It is on YouTube, and if you are a follower of YouTube, get yourself an account if you're not, and become a follower of the Astrological Winds channel, and you'll never miss an episode. I do try to social media blitz people. The list keeps getting bigger and bigger. There's, 100 followers or more on YouTube, that many or more on podcasts too. So it's hard to social media everyone. So if you're following me on YouTube, open up an account, become a follower of the channel, but you have to turn your notifications on too, and you'll know when I get it. And on the podcast, available on all kinds of podcasts, you just have to look up the Astrological Winds channel. Apple iPodcast is number one, but it's on a whole bunch of others too. And so, best thing you guys can do for me is to keep passing the link on to other people who would be interested in it. A lot of people have interest in astrology these days, like to get the good word out. Some of the astrology I see out there is not really the highest quality stuff. So get the word out. It's the best way you guys can pay me back for this free service. People following me all over the world now, so like to just increase our family here. And if anybody wants a reading, or if anybody wants to give a donation for the service, I have Zelle and Venmo accounts set up under my email, or you can contact me under my email, and that is mattHue823@gmail.com. And all kinds of readings available. Natal charts, predictive for the next year, astrolocality if you're looking for a new place to live, election charts for the timing of new events. And now we're coming out of the Mercury retrograde. A lot of people have been asking me about that, so we can really start looking at elections again. Horary questions, if you have some burning yes or no thing you need to know about, can't figure it out, need some help. Relationship charts, children's charts. Definitely do events too if you're interested in some kind of event, lecture. Also, classes available on Dropbox. Once again, email me, mattHue823@gmail.com. And the classes are $25 a piece, $20 if you're a student. There's 5 of them so far, including the Zodiac. And we'll eventually get to more as more needed. You can take them sequentially as a student, or you can just take one-offs if you're just interested in certain things. All right, I think that covers most of it. If you don't want to be social media bombed, let me know. I can't promise that I'll remember all the time. And like I said, I just don't get to everybody, so become a follower otherwise. And this is Matt Lawton, and signing off to next week. Have a happy July, and I'll see you soon.